All right, here we go. Monique Crabb, a Mexican-American artist whose work explores the intersections of identity, societal constraints, and the human body through narrative, symbolism, and traditional craft processes. Rooted in feminist theory, her practice interrogates how gendered bodies are shaped by history and society. Her diverse practice spans installation, video and photography, fiber, and other traditional core processes. Creative Mornings Baltimore, you can read her whole bio on our website, but please help me welcome Monique to the stage.
This one? I don't think I need. Oh, wow. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Happy Halloween. I didn't expect so many of y'all to be here. And also, I hope I don't depress y'all with my art practice. That involves a lot of sadness. I don't think I can hold all these things. This was a prop that I actually wasn't going to use because I have it memorized. What's going on here? Hold on one second. There we go. My name is Monique Crabb, and my background is in photography. I came into art making in high school in darkroom photography. I was really inspired by the magic of darkroom photography, but at some point after undergraduate years at MICA and running Current Space, which I did for 10 years, I got a bit burnt out. I was like burnt out with art, burnt out with photography, doing it for like 15 years. I worked in dark rooms, and I gave myself kind of a challenge of like not making artwork for a couple years, and was kind of waiting for something to inspire me, which brings me into the world of softness. I think it must have been Pinterest or something. I came across a photo of a quilt of an artist in Austin, Texas named Maura Ambrose. I had seen quilts before, but there was something about her quilts that really drew me to the practice of quilting. And I challenged myself to make a quilt. I borrowed someone's sewing machine, failed miserably, gave the quilt to somebody. They told me it was good. I didn't believe them. And then I think like I took another year off before I went back to quilting. And this isn't the first quilt. I mean, obviously I made that terrible crib quilt that I gave to a friend. And then I made a couple after that to really like get a hang of it and understand it. Because I really wanted to memorialize my dad's life, who died when I was 20 years old. And so here you can see how I married my love of photography into the world of softness. And I spent like a year making cyanotype prints I scanned photos of my dad's life and used the sun to expose the image onto cyanotype fabric, coated fabric. And then after that year, I laid them out to sort of figure out the design that was, and if y'all don't know, a quilt is 3 layers, and when you sew those 3 layers together, that's what makes the quilt sandwich. And so anyways, I laid it out, and it immediately became like a newspaper spread, which reminded me of my dad, without the written story there. And then here is a close-up of the style of stitching, which isn't traditional to American quilting. It's pulled from Japanese mending, where they would take used clothing and mend them together in this style called boro. So the thread is thicker. It's more like embroidery thread. What else do I have here? When it got really exciting for me was when I discovered plant dyeing, so extracting color from plants. And also after like a couple years of using synthetically dyed, commercially made fabric, I was like, how had it not dawned on me that I could just use secondhand fabric from thrift stores, because I love thrifting. So I started using secondhand fabric, but then using undyed fabric, like curtains and tablecloths, bed sheets. I really loved the idea that secondhand clothes carry other people's body excrement, you know, like, I know that's a weird thing to say, but I felt like there was a lot of like history in the weight of fabric, and even if you can't see it when you dye with plants, those oils and things from bodies resist the dye, and so there'd be like stains. I never really liked an even dye. I liked seeing those mistakes, I guess, signs of life. This one's called Mexico City. When I finished, it's all plant dyed. It reminded me of flying to Mexico City as a child. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I would go to Mexico to visit my family, and it reminded me of flying into Mexico. It's so colorful, the architecture. That's a bad image of that. This one's called Nine Eyes, and all plant dyed, using a very traditional pattern called the courthouse steps. What's special about this one is that the original color is really bright, because colors that you get from plants, you can get really bright colors, but then there's this process called saddening, like sad, where you take iron solution, which is from rusty metal. You soak rusty metal with vinegar and water, and then when you dip your plant dye, like say Queen Anne's lace is like a bright sunny yellow, but if you dip it in iron, you get a dark green. So everything, all the colors here are saddened. This is just another fun quilt called Take Flight, also all plant dyed. It's really hard to get a deep black with plant dyes, so I was kind of proud of that one. So after a few years of quilting and respecting the history of quilting and really understanding it, I went back to my conceptual ways of thinking, and in 2019 gave myself the challenge of making a series of quilts that were around 4 feet, unfunctional. And at the time I was listening to a couple books. One of them was about how trauma resides in the body. It's a pretty famous book by Vesser Vandercook. It was called The Body Keeps the Score. So I was listening to that, and I was also listening to Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, so more of a poetic perspective on how trauma plays out in our bodies. So I started this, and really I had no idea what I was going to do. I gave myself the parameters of working under 4 feet, making them unfunctional, all plant dyed. And the first one was, what could I do with a 2-inch square? And this hexagon shape emerged. And then I started thinking about how can I portray the body without showing the body, and using geometric forms, which is like something that's more common in quilting. So this emerged, and it's called Inward and Outward. And then this one's called Vibrations, which also speaks to the vibrations our body, all the organs create sounds that we can't hear, but it's definitely creating some vibrations. And I used the quilting style to represent that, the radial quilting. So it's not finished, it doesn't have binding. That's how you finish a quilt, is that you put binding around the edge, so then it's functional and won't fall apart. I really don't like the way these look up here. The color is off. This is called Heat Rises. Most quilters don't want you to see the mess that gets trimmed away, the threads hanging off, and I really wanted to show that. This is my ode to womanhood. I wanted the design to be very clean and tight, but then the edges be a mess. This one's called If We All Cried at Once, Also, it's not trimmed up and clean. I wanted the weight of the threads to represent tears. So I finished that series and I wanted to show it, but then the pandemic hit. But on Instagram, this gallery popped up from Boston called Shelter in Place, and that is a miniature gallery. So I proposed to recreate soft body, but in 2 inches. So I made all of those, and they're all under 2 inches. Yeah, that's what anxiety does. I was like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and cutting, I guess they're like a centimeter, the squares on that one. I would never do that again. As with most things that I make, I would never do them again. So I also got the opportunity to propose putting a pile of dirt on the floor. My brother had died right before the pandemic, and we didn't get to have a proper funeral for him. So I asked if they would put a pile of dirt with a plant that speaks to the materials, but also, to have my own personal memorial for him. So speaking of my brother, one of my 4 brothers, he suffered from bipolar schizoaffective disorder, and his seasons in life were not typical seasons. They revolved around jail and psych wards, hospitals, and halfway homes. And so I'd been quilting, I'd been realizing the therapeutic qualities of quilting and working with fabric and sewing, whatnot. And I got a phone call from my mom, which I got over the span of 20 years that were so disheartening, dealing with sort of this like ambiguous grief. And I got off the phone with her because he, I think, gotten arrested or was missing or something. And I had this like deep feeling of hopelessness that I finally had realized what that feeling was that I always got. And I was like, what constructive thing could I do with this? So I decided to make a story quilt, but I didn't want to be literal like I did with my dad's life. I wanted it to be a little more universal, so I went with symbols. And the only pieces up there that are representative from photographs are the 2 figures at the bottom are my parents on their honeymoon before they had me and my brother. And then the window is my childhood bedroom that I shared with my brother. And then all the symbols are sort of like representative of situations, but generally a lot of them are generic too. While I was making it over the span of a year, I was also writing short stories just to process it all. And meditating on his life and how I thought it was a sad life to live, to be trapped in such a broken body. And then after I finished it, he was run over while he was out walking one night. And it was really insane. I was like, I just finished this quilt. Did I do something crazy? So yeah, there's humor to sadness, to loss. So, yeah, I wish I had a picture of the back of it because it's really a beautiful, like indigo dyed sky color. Here's a close-up of tracing the symbols. I stitched around them and then connected each symbol to each other. Through this process, I realized how much I loved storytelling and writing, and this is from a show called How Does It Feel? How Does It Feel? Yeah. And I wrote, I call it a run-on story because there's like no punctuation or like pauses to breathe. It's just like one long, intense story about a trip to Texas, scattering my dad's ashes and seeing my brother for the last time in his halfway house. But I sold this piece with the intention that the story was part of it. Big jump. at some point in my practice, when I realized how much I loved writing and text, I started bringing text into my work. And this is inspired by a situation with a friend, just talking about how real this is, like societal pressure of motherhood, but yet fathers don't get the same sort of pressure. And so it's kind of like a cheeky piece where it's a pillow, but it's 5 feet by 3 feet. And I sourced thrift stores for floral fabric, cut out each flower, glued them down. Again, I'd never do it again. And then sewed it down into this big pillow. I wasn't done with the idea of bad moms, because I'm obsessive. I worked on this for a year, which was like 300 hours. Each shag piece of yarn I hand tied, what's called a turkey knot. I wanted to make a rug. I wanted it to be representative of my childhood. My house from my childhood was like covered in shag red, rust red carpet that probably gave me allergies for life. The pink lettering, I wanted it to be reminiscent of like bleach. And all the yarn I sourced on eBay because I wanted it to be from the 70s. So this piece was in a show called Love and Cruelty, where this piece was also there. What's my time? I'm doing good. Okay. The letters are made out of paper pulp clay, and I was moving houses and I came across a stack of readings from my undergraduate years of ton of white male theory. All the white male theory they made you read in art school and undergrad, I kept, and I blended it up. And I made those letters. Don't worry, I'll clean it up. And then I also made a mold of a Pepto-Bismol bottle. And then I had a local ceramicist cast them for me because I guess I call myself a multidisciplinary artist, but it's mostly just that it means I get bored. So I'm always like trying to teach myself a new thing, and that was a new thing. I made like 4 molds of a Pepto-Bismol bottle. It's I found myself like, why am I doing this? It was very hard. So then I had someone else cast them for me, so I can have them for this installation. Also in the show was this, you know what that is. It's called an anthotype. So I coated the paper with a fugitive dye. And a fugitive dye means a runaway dye. Some plant dyes are permanent just because they have a lot of tannins in them. Tannins are in every edible thing, every plant. Some have higher levels than others. And most food waste and berries have very low levels of tannin in them. And so this is beet juice, and this is a great substance to use for anthotypes, just like flowers or other kinds of berries. And then I exposed it to the sun for 2 days, and I made a wall full of them, and they're all slightly different. So yeah, this is a show. So Bad Mother is like a cross from this. Spilling of Pepto-Bismol. And then the last thing I worked on, got 2 minutes. This was my last show, so I wasn't done with my obsession with rugs, but I didn't want to spend 300 hours on one rug. So I got a tufting gun to make this series. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something more universal than I had done before. I felt like a lot of my work is super personal. So I wanted it to be personal, but I wanted it to be insanely universal. And dreams are that. There's not one single person that does not dream or think about dreaming. And so I was writing a bunch of phrases that around dreaming, inspired by lyrics, but also literature. I made this one first, and then immediately thought I wanted to go. You can actually read that black one, but it's pretty hard. In darkroom photography and black and white photography, there's the zone scale system, where you read it in this way to find the deepest blacks and the whitest whites. And so I was referencing that in this series where I wanted to go from, I took the darkest gray, or the dark gray from here, and then went darker until it was black on black. So 2 companies' versions of black around the last one, and then white on white. And this was just like it was just really satisfying to do. And it was part of the Scout Fair that we just had. It was the first art fair during Artscape. And it just was so fun to see people come in and immediately connect, which I had not done before. 20 minutes, I'm done.
All right, y'all. It's time for question and answer. Before we get into this, let me just be clear and say question and answer time is for us to have a collective, deeper understanding of the speaker's work and our kind of, deepening our knowledge and understanding. So it's for questions. It's not appropriate to talk about your own work or to pitch your own thing. If you want to do that, we have the 30-second pitch. We have the morning matchboards. So thank you for your understanding with that. And now we will open the floor to questions.
Oh.
Thank you so much. That was really amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the spaces in which you've done your work. Is it always at home? Do you have a studio? Can you just describe how space plays into understanding what the next iteration of your work will look like?
Yeah. Is this?
Yep.
Y'all hear? Okay. I never really had a studio up until recently. The Dream Rugs, I had to get a studio, which I have at Current Space in their basement. It's not glamorous. But I needed a space dedicated to the frame is really large. But before that, I always worked at home. And I think also when I had my daughter in 2014, that was when I was like slowly bringing quilting into my life. And it just, it's a very domestic medium. And I felt like you can take it anywhere, But yeah, I had a home studio, just a bedroom, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wish I had a space this big. I would go into the sculptural realm big time. Yeah. Someone else have?
Hi. You mentioned that you took 2 years off. You had a couple years off. And I was wondering what it was that brought you the inspiration to starting it. Did you have to work for that inspiration? What did you do if you did? What is it that brought you that inspiration?
What brought me that inspiration? I mean, now that I've been making art pretty continuously for, 12 years now, nonstop. That break was, I felt lost, and I was like waiting for something to come for me. So yeah, when I saw Maura Ambrose's quilts, it was just like it jump-started me into a whole realm of working with fibers. And I teach at MICA, and I teach an Intro to Fiber class, and I call it the mega workshop class, because every week I teach a different fiber-related process. So like 16 processes I show them. Yeah, and I know I'm not like a master of anything, which I kind of like. I know a little bit about a lot of things.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for all of this morning. You mentioned a few times in the evolution of all your different kinds of work that you challenge yourself. Can you talk more about how that plays into what you end up doing? Like, how do you consciously challenge yourself? Do you look back on it and go, oh wow, I made myself do something different?
Yeah, I get bored easily. That's what I was saying with the multidisciplinary thing. I get bored easily, and I like to be obsessive. I don't know. Like right now, I'm kind of in a blah. I finished that series, and I'm like, what's gonna make me really obsessed next? Although I am working on a memoir. Mason Jar Press that's here in Baltimore, they invited me to write a hybrid memoir, and so that's kind of slowed me down. I'm like, I kind of not letting myself get obsessed with something new. But yeah, I mean, I have bipolar, and I have moments where I'm like really crazy, and then I have moments where I'm like, I want to sleep for 6 months. And that's where a lot of my artwork, it's like in these like obsessive, manic, and then but evolved from a challenge. It's always like, because I get bored and I know myself, I have to challenge myself all the time. So yeah, I don't know. Being an artist is weird.
Hey Monique, thanks for talking. I'm here.
Oh, hi.
I just was wondering if you could share with us how you manage to keep the softness in your heart, in your work, in your teaching, and also the boundaries around what you're willing to do and share and in your work and in your life.
I have no boundaries. I'm working on boundaries. Yeah, my therapist is teaching me about boundaries. I'm getting better about not sharing everything, but I have no qualms about sharing, really sad things and I have found that me sharing really hard things lets other people share hard things. And that just comes natural to me. My mom has 0 boundaries, and she taught me 0 boundaries. So, but I often I'll meet someone at a party, and they'll turn to me and go, I've never told anyone that. And I'm like, I know, yeah. It's because I told you a lot about myself. So, 0 boundaries, yeah.
We're back here.
Hi. Hi, all the way in the back. Hi.
I had a question about moving from very visual and kind of abstract and symbolic work to using primarily words and that shift. Because words are very directly saying something to a viewer versus more interpretive, and how you thought about that change.
That was another challenge, the word thing. And being a professor, I'm going to wrap that together. I did really bad in school. I barely graduated. I don't know any rules. I don't know any writing rules. Sometimes when I tell my students, I barely know how to read a ruler, they're like, okay. And I'm like, no, it's true. The challenge was I felt deeply embarrassed to share anything that had rules, like writing, and I think it's very vulnerable to share, to share text, especially in such a bold way. The phrases are one thing, but writing stories and sharing that, which I was doing with the story quilted by my brother. When I was writing stories, I was sharing them on Instagram. It was every time I would quilt a symbol, I would also share a story. And through that process, in getting people's responses to it, really helped me oh, my story is of interest, or people aren't picking apart my grammar. And yeah, I don't know. I think really I want to be a writer and like not show artwork, but that's a compulsive need I have to fill, make stuff with my hands. But writing makes you have to like sit, which I hate doing. I hate sitting. But I want to write way more than I do. And yeah, I got invited to write this book, and I don't know where a comma goes, but there, I'm doing it. I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Hi, Monique.
Yes.
Over here. Thank you so much for sharing. I think something that really stands out about your work is it's very clear that you don't see yourself as the challenge. Like, you're not the obstacle, you're the vessel for the thing that you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to say it because my leg's not working. Somebody was talking about how you challenge yourself, and what I noticed is it's obvious through your work and through your life, you've, I guess, lived through many challenges of your own, but then if you're making something out of it, then you're not, if you're solving the problem, you're not the problem, you're the solver of the problem. So I guess I wanted to ask how, if you have any advice for sort of shifting to that perspective as a maker, as in when you're making something from a difficult place, seeing yourself as not the challenge and the work, not so much, how do you word? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I can explain like how, yeah, I've had people be like, well, you've been through a lot, because I have another brother who died of an overdose, and there's a lot of like intense things I've been through, but I don't know. I don't know how you can tell somebody how you process the things you process. I just think I discovered, my parents didn't parent me. I had to do a lot of my own parenting, and I think maybe that comes where it's just like, no one's gonna live your life for you. You have to do it. So how do you want to do it? I did nothing as a child. Like played no sports. I just watched. My parents would be like, do you want to do something? No, just want to watch. And I think some point in my mid-20s, when all my friends like went to college and everyone was doing stuff, I was like, oh yeah, no one's gonna do this for me. Like, you know, and then I think I just gave myself challenges, like move to Baltimore, go to art school, they were all challenges, like they were very hard. And so now I'm on that challenge road. How can I challenge myself next? With what? You know, talking in front of people is insanely difficult. I used to not be able to do it at all. And that was like teaching taught me how to talk in front of people. So.
You're doing great.
Oh, yeah, thanks. But yeah, I generally want to be alone in my studio. But when you make art and you show it, you have to like talk to people about it. So.
I just wanted to thank you. I really am so inspired by what I'm seeing, and I keep thinking about, you mentioned that you hardly even knew how to use a sewing machine, and I'd love to hear about the tools you use on a very practical sense. A lot of the tools that go into sewing are actually very sharp and hard, as opposed to this theme of softness. Mm-hmm. It's all the stuff we don't see. You said iron, but you were talking about the element of iron, but there's the iron and there's scissors and pins. And I recently got back into sewing after being a 12-year-old who did it. And I now have a dog. I don't have a daughter, but I have to be careful not to drop pins all over the place so that the dog literally doesn't eat them. But I just wondered if there were any hard stories around this softness, I burned myself with the iron, or cut fabric and I accidentally accidentally and literally wish that I had cut myself because that would have healed, but the fabric never will, and I have to figure out a way to heal it. So just the tools that you recommend, that you love, the mishaps you've had with them.
Oh yeah, I mean, the whole process of making a quilt looks gentle, but it's violent. I mean, you're stabbing fabric with a needle and, you know, bringing it together. So it's like you need the force in order to connect things, pieces together. I don't know what else to say about that, but yeah, burning. I burnt myself, stabbed myself, blood. Yeah, that. I think with making anything, there's like pain involved, right? Yeah. That's all I got for that.
Y'all help me thank Monique.